I think it's about damn time for another house music theory lesson. So in this video, we're going to break down a really nice chord progression from a track called Freaks in Front by house music legend Paul Johnson. It's one of these really nice housey progressions, which on one hand is really short and simple, but then on the other hand, full of amazing principles and complex chords that even your typical chord identifier won't recognize. So without further ado, let's go. So we just heard the original progression in the preview, but let's take a look at what we have in there. So we're starting out kind of classic with an E flat minor 9, going into a B diminished 7. Actually, but depending on what the bass line is doing, sometimes it's playing a B flat, which would make this a B flat 7 flat 9, going back into our E flat minor 9, and then going into this kind of nice fancy thing right here, which would be a B flat 7 sharp 5 flat 9. So let's maybe have a quick listen at the progression on top of a beat. There's lots of nice stuff in there that's typical for house that we can take away from this. And these types of slightly more complex chord progressions are obviously not that easy to come up with by yourself, which is why I created a brand new MIDI pack full of progressions, great for classic house, deep house, and house music in general. This one is also in there as a little bonus, but you have over 30 more progressions of that type in there. And you can find that on my website, olienshouse.com. The link is in the description. I'd really appreciate it if you check it out. But let's now actually break this down. And we're in the key of E flat minor. So we have all the black keys and F and B. Sounds like this. And this scale is not only really nice to work with because you can just jam it out on the black keys, basically hitting a right note every single time. It's also sitting in a really nice spectrum frequency-wise. So the low E flat in the sub is hitting 38 hertz, which means it's kind of really just hitting the sweet spot of the lowest point that a club system can kind of reproduce. Usually you say 40 hertz is like the lowest, 38 is still okay on most systems. So you're kind of getting a nice dark vibe if you're playing that as a fundamental note. And then bass lines obviously often use the 4, which is the A flat, and then the 5, which is the B flat. And these are also still sitting nicely in the sub range. So this is 52 hertz in the on the low end, and this is 57. So if you're playing a bass line with this, you're kind of having a really low note and then two still pretty subby ones, which creates a nice dark vibe for certain tunes. And that's kind of what Paul Johnson did in here as well. If we play a little beat, and I can show you what the bass line is doing on top. It's really just these two. And then you might have recognized this little walk down that he sometimes does, maybe kind of his signature sound by now. From his famous song Get Down, of course. So that's kind of what we're working with in the left hand on for the bass. That's kind of a bit boring, so the interesting stuff is coming up now. As I said, we're starting out with this nice E flat minor 9, right? We're actually spreading it out a bit, so this would be the normal one, but then you're going an octave lower. So the overtones of the bass are still kind of nicely coming through, and then the chord is sitting on top of that. So we're starting on the 1 of the scale, but then we're jumping straight into this one right here, right? The B diminished 7. And for me, diminished chords are really underrated because you usually do your progressions, you take your major 7th chords and minor 7th chords for house music. But then the diminished chords have a really nice vibe to them, and let me explain why. Let's maybe for that go into C major for a quick second and explain some things here. So you obviously have your different chord stages, like if you count through C major, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, the subdominant, 5, the dominant, right, 6 and 7. And the 7 here, the B, is diminished. So we have 2 minor thirds, right? And we can also extend that and add another minor third to create a diminished 7. And that's what we have in this hand right here. We just have minor thirds stacked up, and that creates a specific cool vibe. Not only because it's symmetrical, so for example, the F we have up top here, we can just bring that down. We still have the same chord, and then we can also technically bring down the D. We just have we just have minor thirds stacked up. So no matter where you place those notes, you're always going to get the same chord. So that's already kind of interesting there. But more importantly, as you can maybe already hear, if we're starting from here, this kind of wants to resolve into our 1 chord. And the reason why there's this resolution that wants to happen is that we have the most important notes of our dominant chords already in this diminished chord. Let's go back to C major for a quick second. I'm sorry I'm switching around, but it's so easy to show over here. If we go to our 5 chord, right, the G, and then add the 7 in there, that's our dominant chord. And they're characterized by the fact that they have a major third and a minor 7. So usually you would have your major 7 chord or your minor 7 chord, but the dominant chord has a major third and a minor 7. So your 1 and your 5 of this chord, right, is always the same, but then these two are what really gives the character, or what creates or wants to create that resolution. Because in C, the leading tone of B wants to resolve into the 1. The 4, which is kind of our subdominant, also wants to resolve. So if we play our dominant chord G, it gets this really cheesy resolution that we know from like your most basic music theory. But in house music, you kind of want to keep things looping, and you want things to have a little bit more flavor than this. So you want to use the 2 important notes from your dominant chord, but then kind of spice them up with something else. And that's what happens here. If we look back at our diminished chord, we're now back in the scale of E flat minor. If we check, what's our 5 in E flat minor, right? We have the B flat. Let's build a dominant chord on top of that. So that would be our dominant chord, right? It's a B flat 7. And if we check what we have in here, we have the major third, the D being played, and then the minor 7 in the form of A flat. So in our diminished chord, we actually have the D, which would be the major third that I talked about, and we have the A flat, which is our minor 7th of the 5th chord in our scale, right? So this right here also wants to resolve into our 1 really nicely. Just a little additional thing here when we're talking about dominant chords. For example, we had our G7. This is a tritone because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 semitones. So between our major third and the minor 7th, we have 6 semitones, which is also where the symmetry comes from, because we have 12 keys on our keyboard. So this tritone, if I, for example, bring down the F now, are also 6 semitones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If I bring down the B even more, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we always have the same space between them if we're using a tritone. That's where they play such an important role. And the tritone is what makes something seem dominant. So back to our diminished chords. I know this is a lot to take in. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions about the stuff, or if I go over something too quickly, I can easily make a follow-up with you on that. But here we have our nicely symmetrical diminished chord, which wants to kind of resolve into our initial chord. And we get this resolution, but we also have the 9 in here. So we're not completely resolving. It's not like this, I don't know, like Disney Channel kind of resolution. That's nice. And as I said, sometimes the bass line is actually going on to the 5, which works just as well because, as we said, the 5 is also part of the dominant chord. Okay, so you might now ask yourself, okay, but D is not actually in the scale of E flat, right? So we don't have the D in there. So to build a dominant chord, you have to leave your typical minor scale, which is why I'm often against like using scale tools or things like that, or just thinking in one scale, because just to get this typical resolution from dominant to your back to your 1, you have to switch up the scale anyway. And you would then call this the melodic minor, where you basically introduce this D, so it kind of gets this Arabic vibe. So for example, if we say we have E flat melodic minor, just has this specific vibe to it that you probably know from certain types of music. So if you're thinking in the scale of B flat, you're turning your minor 7 into a major 7, because that then in turn creates a major third for your dominant chord. And then lastly, for this one, I said sometimes the bass line is playing a B flat, which in this case, you kind of have your B flat dominant chord, and then you have a flat 9, right? Because from here, your normal 9 would be this one right here, the C, but you're flatting that. But you don't necessarily have to think in these chord names and stuff. It's just a way to write them down if someone then wants to play that, right? It's not as important as you think. The sound and the setup and the vibe of the sound is more important. But from that, basically, from our diminished chord or B7 flat 9, we're going back to the 1, right? And now we're jumping to this. Which has somewhat of a similar vibe, right? So in a way, it's the same chord, just 1 up. We're bringing the F to the F sharp. And this is also where my theory knowledge kind of comes to an end a little bit. I just feel like it adds this little accent here. The resolution still wants to happen, right? We're on our 5. We have our tritone in here, which wants to resolve, but we're just adding an extra note for flavor. And this then gets really nice and loopy, because we always have this resolution that we want to have because of the tritone from our dominant chord, but then we're adding some more notes to get somewhat of a partial resolution, and that makes it possible to loop things pretty nicely. So you could play this forever. Okay, cool. I hope you found this helpful. This was kind of a deep dive, lots of talking. I'm sorry about this. The next video is actually going to be reproducing the track by Paul Johnson. I, of course, always want to cover some stuff by the legends. And this was kind of the first video to talk about the chords a little bit, because the next one would get way too long. And as I said, you can find this progression in my brand new MIDI pack. Feel free to check it out. As I said, let me know in the comments if you have any other questions. Also, if something was slightly incorrect, I'm not a pianist or music theory expert, but I try to put some info out there, which is helpful for house music specifically. And yeah, I kind of want to keep this music theory series going. So I'm looking forward to see you in the next couple of videos. Ciao.